What's up everybody, welcome back to Altcoin Nexus and welcome to a video which was very necessary on the Ethereum ETF. Alright, so in this video we'll do a deep dive into the Ethereum ETF. We'll look at some numbers, as you can see in the background already as well, but we'll talk about them in a moment. We'll talk about inflows, we'll compare it to the Bitcoin ETF, we'll talk about in general things you need to know, right, with Grayscale for example, which was a major factor in the Bitcoin ETF, at least in the first month or two. So in general, if you want to know what to expect after the Ethereum ETF, stick around and then we will talk about it right now. Alright, so there's multiple things we'll talk about in this video. I kind of diluted it down to three things, alright? And that's, first of all, the inflows, alright? So what do we expect from the inflows? And can we actually predict some sort of an inflow? And what do those inflows mean to the price? Then we'll talk about the moves we've seen so far in the market, all right, and we'll get to that first, all right. So it might sound a little bit vague, but I do think that there's something very interesting to say about Bitcoin, Bitcoin's price moves before the ETF got introduced, and Ethereum price moves before the ETF got introduced. And then lastly, we'll also talk about Grayscale. If you remember correctly, Grayscale had a Bitcoin and an Ethereum trust. And what happened with the Bitcoin trust is that after the ETF, the Bitcoin ETF was introduced, a lot of people dumped their Grayscale trust Bitcoin, which caused quite a lot of bearish pressure. All right. And with Ethereum, the same is possible, even though I don't think that will necessarily happen. But we do have to talk about that as well. You can see in the background right now, already all the ETFs. All right, so here you can see all the ETF deployers. There you can also see the Grayscale Trust and the Grayscale Mini ETF, which is something we'll talk about later. You can see the exchange, custodian, waiver amount, and also already the ETF inflow estimates. All right, so there are multiple research companies and research institutions who are kind of estimating how much inflows we'll see. As you can see, it's a pretty wide range. It basically ranges all the way from 500 million up to 2 billion. So that's a pretty wide range. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But the first thing I want to talk about is the price moves ahead of the ETF. And I think that's interesting because one of the key things people are talking about is some sort of a buy the rumor, sell the news effect. And that's obviously what we saw with Bitcoin. All right, so if you look at Bitcoin at the daily time frame, what you can see is that we rallied a lot right here before the ETF was introduced. And then the 14th of January, when it was introduced, or at least 2 days before that, we dumped down. All right, and we dumped down quite a bit. From the top to the bottom, we dumped down 20%. So there was a buy the rumor, sell the news effect. Now, I would like to argue that there is no such effect with Ethereum. And one of the key reasons for that is that if you look at Ethereum right now, first of all, buy the rumor, sell the news is a very dual concept, all right? I would argue, and to a certain extent this is not true, but I would argue that you need the first part to also have the second part. So if you say buy the rumor, then you need to see some sort of a buy the rumor effect as well. And I don't see that. All right, obviously we had some sort of a move here, but then, and that was like 37%, so a pretty big move, but then it did not stick around, all right? And since the approval of the Ethereum ETF, we're up only 23%. So I would argue that the buy the rumor effect, the bullish momentum because of the Ethereum ETF, has never really happened. And that therefore the sell the news effect will also be limited. Now, since so many people are expecting it, it could still very well happen. But I think overall the risk of having a major sell the news effect is much overstated. All right, I think it's much more likely that we will have a pullback, but to turn this trend around, which I would say on the 12-hour, but also on the 4-hour time frame, we are in an uptrend. I don't think the sell the news effect will be that strong that it turns this trend around. So that's what I wanted to talk about regarding the front running in terms of price. Now let's talk about the Grayscale issue. All right, so the Grayscale issue, if you don't know, is that Grayscale had a private Bitcoin trust where basically institutional investors could buy Bitcoin, all right? And it was held by Grayscale and it was much easier. And what happened is that there was a major discount for a majority of the time between GBTC and Bitcoin. So when the ETF got introduced, and you can see that right here, the discount disappears when the ETF was approved. What happened is that a lot of these people started selling off their Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which was converted into an ETF. And that's also what you can see right here. I mean, in total, like over 340,000 Bitcoin was actually sold off through Grayscale. So what people are afraid of, and that was actually quite bearish at the time as well. Like sometimes you had these major outflows from Grayscale, which suppressed the price. So people are scared of that as well when it comes to Ethereum. And I want to talk about two things why I think that, again, is something overstated, and I don't think we need to be too scared of that. And the first thing is about that discount. As you can see, Grayscale Bitcoin traded at a discount for a very long period of time right here. It went down, of course, but then only the 12th of January, people were able to convert their Grayscale Bitcoin into Bitcoin, real Bitcoin, at less of a discount. And if you compare that with Ethereum, with the Ethereum Trust, you can see that hasn't really been trading at a discount since the 28th of May. So if these people really wanted to get out of the trust, then they could have done that already for almost 2 months now at a minimal discount. So that already is one thing that's reducing the expected selling pressure. And then apart from that, what they have also done, and I wanted to look at that right here, I just clicked something away which was important. But apart from that, Grayscale also introduced a mini trust. And that one you can see right here, right? So they still have the Grayscale Trust, but they also have Grayscale Mini. And they have already converted 10% of the trust into that Grayscale Mini. And then apart from that, that is also a way for Grayscale Trust holders to easily convert into the ETF from the trust. And in general, that in combination with the discount makes me believe, again, that the potential selling pressure after the ETF, at least from Grayscale, is minimal. And I'm not sure what the market expects from that. I think the market is still relatively scared for that as well. So if we see, and this, we still need to see this, all right? I'm talking about theories here. So we still need to see whether that's actually true. But I do think, again, that is more of a bullish thing, potentially, all right, with the expectation of the market, than a bearish thing. So for now, I would argue that it's a 2-0 in favor of the Ethereum bulls. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is potential inflows. So we looked at the potential inflows at the start right here, what people what research companies are estimating between 500 million and 2 billion. The source I'm using, which is ASXN, which I do tend to trust, have the estimation of 800 million. And that's based on other ETF, like here in Europe, we already have an Ethereum ETF or something like it at least. So it's based on what we see from there, but it's also based on market cap, etc. They come out to somewhere between 800 million and 1.2 billion per month. Now, let me say this up front. The effect that will have, again, we will have to see, right? Because it also depends on the volume. It also depends on the outflows from Grayscale. And we simply don't know those, all right? I talked about in this video why I think we can predict that those will be limited. But we still have to see that in reality as well. So these inflows, I think they are decent. We really have to see in real time what they will mean for the price. But again, I would argue that this is something bullish, because something that people are underestimating is that with Ethereum, one of the things that's cool about it is that a lot of the supply is actually locked up, right, in staking and in smart contracts. So if you compare that to Bitcoin, you can actually see that for Ethereum, there is a much lower percentage of the supply liquid, which means that there's less in terms of percentage of the supply able to be sold after the ETF. And that's, I would say, another positive factor. So altogether, because I'm going to conclude this video, altogether there are many more factors that come into play about this, all right, for sure, especially when it comes to external factors, for example, the US presidential race. But overall, if we look at the technical specifics for the Ethereum ETF, I'm more bullish than bearish, all right? And for me, the main price target is around 4,000. We will see whether we can get there. I will keep you updated on that. But for now, hopefully I've been able to inform you a little bit more on the Ethereum ETF and what to expect. So if you still do have any questions, let me know down in the comments. But for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.